This is Curtis Hawks, Chief Marketing Officer with Insurance Agency Marketing Services. And today we've got a special guest. We've got Chance Dibben, our Creative Solution Strategist, with us. For those of you that haven't had the opportunity to work with Chance yet, he oversees a lot of our custom marketing projects, and so he's working with advisors to help generate a consistent flow of prospects for them. He also coordinates with a lot of our marketing partners to provide the correct solutions for advisors based off of their target market. And today we're going to be spending some time talking about, I guess really, what are some trends that we see going into 2021 and even beyond. So from your perspective, advisors, for the most part, marketing is their biggest challenge out there. When you look at this year, what do you see as some trends or opportunities that are out there for them to capitalize on?
I see a lot of great opportunities when it comes to marketing for advisors to work on. Now, obviously, from 2020, the challenges that year brought and the adaptations that we've all had to make, we've seen things change, and moving forward into the new year, a lot of those lessons that we've learned and a lot of those changes that were made to business practices and marketing are going to continue on.
Okay, so when you look at opportunities, are there, what comes to top of mind as far as different types of marketing activities that you think are going to play a significant role over the course of this year?
Certainly digital solutions like social media and video, but we can't forget our traditional marketing methods as well. And that might be a surprising answer. And what I mean by that is your seminars and workshops and your direct mail. Those, I think, are still going to be pretty relevant moving forward.
Okay. So you mentioned social media, and I think that's an area that's top of mind for a lot of advisors. And I think we've got guys and gals that are on opposite ends of the spectrum. You've got some advisors that's a core focus of what they do. You've got some advisors that don't even use social media. But I think everybody, generally speaking, is aware that that's an opportunity out there. And so for an advisor who thinks social media is a platform to do some marketing on, probably one of the first questions they have is, what platform do I use? You've got a number out there: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You've got TikTok now. But I mean, how do you decide on which platform makes the most sense for you?
Well, you have to think about what makes sense for the target market that you're going after. Where are the people that bring you business? Where are they meeting and talking and engaging? For the financial services space, a lot of that's going to be LinkedIn and Facebook, and that's because for the boomer senior market, we see actually Facebook being a big place where that segment engages and that segment engages. Sorry. And then LinkedIn for like the business and high net worth professionals. So those two are going to be very, very relevant for businesses, for financial advisors.
Okay, so it sounds like the starting point. So when you start working with an advisor on a campaign, the starting point that you're looking at is, what is your target market? Who are you actually trying to get in front of them? And then from there we figure out what platforms make the most sense for those campaigns.
Right. And not to discount other platforms. They may be relevant depending on an advisor's particular personality or approach, but Facebook and LinkedIn are going to be the two primary ones, just based off of the consumer base that most advisors work with.
Okay. So an advisor that's wanting to try and generate some prospects off of social media, I know you do a significant amount of work in that, and I would think that for a lot of reps out there, it can be a little bit daunting thinking about, well, what do I do? What are best practices? Those types of things. But what would be some core simple things that you feel, if an advisor is going to be on social media and trying to drum up some prospects, what are the things that they need to be looking at?
Well, so I would think about the same things that are going to be relevant for your business outside of the digital space are going to be relevant in your digital space. So you want to carry those same impulses to your digital platforms and your digital hubs. So when you think about your office and how you want that to look and feel and what you want that to convey, you want that same idea to come across on your Facebook business page or your LinkedIn individual page. For instance, with the types of things that you do on these platforms, you want to be consistent. Just like when you bring people into your office or you're going out doing networking, things of that nature, you have to have a consistent approach. On these platforms, that's generally going to be posting, putting out specific content, or maybe even participating in some groups or things of that nature. So you want to have a consistent approach, be frequent, be regular with it. You want to also make sure that your pages are developed, that they have updated information. Just like with your office or your agency, you want to make sure that the information there is accurate and correct. You want to also have good imagery with as far as the banner images that you use on these platforms, and as far as also the profile pictures. Make sure everything looks nice, clean, and presents that confident, friendly atmosphere that you would normally have in an in-person scenario.
Okay.
I think also you can't forget about personalization. So with these platforms, because it's in the digital space, there's a tendency to lose that personal touch, right? So you want to express some element of your personality or some elements of the human aspect of what you do. And that can be sometimes as simple as including a really good headshot in your profile picture. That could also be using a staff photo in the banner. That could also be, giving us a little behind the scenes shots of the day-to-day business. All of that goes to humanize the digital aspect of your business.
Okay. And I know that you're kind of giving us a high-level overview, and so I know you've gotten a lot of questions about this over the course of the year, and so I know one of the things that you've put together were a couple of different best practice guides, one on LinkedIn and then one on Facebook as well. So for an advisor that hasn't really marketed on social media, it's kind of a how-to, step-by-step guide on how to do that. So I would encourage everybody that's watching, if you haven't gone out and requested that yet, reach out to your sales director and they can get that over to you. So,
well, and there's one thing I did want to mention. So with those guides, they walk you through setting up your profiles, but the LinkedIn one especially walks you through prospecting and engagement. So a big part of what I talked about before was mainly just setting up your page and the kind of things that you would do to keep it going. But you want to bring in prospects, right? And so there are different connection strategies that you can do on LinkedIn, also on Facebook as well, to actively engage with prospects and to get them into your book of business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mentioned content and posting, and I think one of the areas that we've seen significant growth this year is in video, whether it's on social media or whether it's meeting with people, etc. And as you've had states shut down and eliminated face-to-face meetings, it's just grown significantly. So from your perspective, looking at 2021, what role do you see video playing?
I think that video is here to stay, and it's going to be more relevant than ever. With that said, I do think that video is going to evolve over the next year, and so to kind of bring it back to 2020. Right, we were engaging with prospects and, even in our personal lives with family members through Zoom or, what have you. But, and that was sort of as a replacement to in-person meetings that we couldn't have. As we go into 2021, you're going to probably have certain areas where we can have more in-person meetings. That said, that doesn't take away from the power that video can have even if we have more of a hybrid type situation where we have more in-person style events or in-person meetings. One example I can think of is, let's say you do a workshop, right? So whenever you do a workshop, you're going to have a certain number of people that, for whatever reason, don't show up. And if you do a run of workshops, you're going to have a list of people that don't show up. So one thing that you could do is actually take a video of that workshop or the presentation and send it out to those particular prospects. Over the course of the year, that time might not have been right for them when you held the workshop, but as they're able to watch and see what you have to say and present the information, they might come to you. And that's a pretty non-invasive way of doing that, and it's leveraging the efforts and material and time and money that you've already spent. And so video is a great way of doing that. Yeah,
absolutely. So a lot of advisors are doing video right now that a year ago weren't. And so I think many advisors are kind of walking through what are best practices, how should I do it? They're doing video currently, but maybe don't feel like they've got the optimal approach. So from your perspective, as an example, what are things that you would look at? Even down to what type of platform they should be using?
Well, so if we're talking best practices with regards to video, one thing to keep in mind is that yes, there are a lot of different platforms, and you might look at them as you're researching and say, well, they all kind of do the same thing. And that's true to a degree, but there's nuances to each particular platform and how they're used. That's actually one of the things that we get into in our Doing Business Virtually guide, where we actually go through the different platforms and explain how they might be used in your practice. But the key thing, though, is to pick a platform that is appropriate for you, your business, and the clients that you work with. So, and once you've settled on that, practice on that platform, practice using that so you get really, really familiar. The other thing that you'll want to do too is have a couple different platforms that you can use at the ready that you're familiar with, because your consumer base might not be familiar with that particular one, or some of these are browser based, some of them require you to download some things, some consumers might not be okay with, why are you asking me to download this thing? And anything that, adds extra steps to the process takes away from that engagement that you're going to have with your client or your prospect. So I would say practice, and have a few that you're familiar with at the ready. If we're talking about the kinds of ways that you use video, you want to be very aware of the presentation. You want to be very aware of how you are coming across through video. It doesn't take a lot to do a really good video. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment. In fact, most iPhones and smartphone cameras are going to suffice for what folks need to do. You just need to put some thought into how you put that video together. And what I mean by that is lighting, background, surroundings. You want to make sure that you are dressed professionally, just like you would for an in-person appointment. Again, this gets into that idea of the same approaches that you use in the non-virtual world, I guess the physical world, the real world, are going to translate to the digital world. It's just a different way of presenting yourself, but you still want to have that a professional approach. So, excuse me. So yeah, you want to consider lighting, background, lighting and backgrounds.
So I appreciate that, and you made a point to mention as well our Doing Business Virtually guide. That has been probably one of our most downloaded guides that we've put out here in recent memory. And so if you haven't requested that, make sure you reach out to your sales director. They'll get it over to you, but it's got a lot of what you've been talking about in there, best practices, tips, tricks. And again, if you've got questions, give us a call. You can talk to the creative team over here. They're experts in their fields and are here to help you. So I know one question that's on probably everybody's mind is, when do we go back to normal? If we're doing workshops or direct mail or other forms of advertising, when can we get back to doing that? So, in regard to workshops and seminars, can you tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on that for this year and what you think that'll look like?
Well, I think in 2021, kind of touched on this earlier. I think you are going to see some areas where workshops and seminars, in-person events, are viable. In fact, and even in 2020, we actually conducted some workshops and seminars, did we not?
Yeah.
We called these more micro workshops. So instead of a 50 household cap, it was maybe 5-10 household cap. And the difference there is, while you're not really able to play the averages that you would normally do with the seminar model, you are engaging with really primed consumers in a very intimate space, and primed in the sense of we're all dealing with economic questions about our finances and retirements, and depending on whoever's in your target market, there's a lot of questions and a lot of need. And so we found that that small group of people, 5-10, that we could do viably in an area where live events were going on, actually resulted in a lot of great clients for our agents. So I anticipate that same idea moving forward into 2021. We might have some areas where larger workshops are you're able to do. And of course, we don't know what the year is going to hold, so there might be areas where we can't, or might be times in which we can't. But I still see that seminars and workshops are going to be very, very relevant. It's just going to depend on your particular area and the viability and what's available to you there.
Well, and I would think that's something where, working with the IAMS team and coordinating that, because you're right, things move, shift. We've seen surges and different things going on through the year. So I think coordinating, kind of trying to forecast out, what venues are available, and then what time frame should we do things in. I mean, that all factors into when and how you do this, right?
Right, and we can actually pull together a viability survey for our agents if they're wanting to do a workshop or a seminar in their particular area. And that involves taking a look at what venues are available, taking a look at what lockdown orders may or may not be in place, what the level of that is, and and building a strategy from there.
Yeah. So, absolutely. So, one of the trends that we saw pre-COVID was we've been seeing this shift towards digital marketing, and then it just has pretty much gone, vertical over the course of 2020. And so one of the areas where we've seen movement away from has been direct mail. So pre-COVID, we saw advisors doing less and less direct mail in their marketing. What role do you think that might play as we go into this year?
Well, my viewpoints, during our current scenario and even before it, is that there's always a place for the traditional marketing methods. There's always a place for that. Instead of when you build a marketing strategy, you might have one core thing that you work on that is really beneficial for you, but you should have a range of things working for you, all pointing in the same direction. So we get this question a lot about traditional versus digital. We got this before the pandemic, and it's certainly a relevant question now, because you're right, we did see a significant drop in direct mail in spring of 2020. But again, I think it still has a place in moving forward, and for a couple reasons. So for one, because direct mail has dropped, and we're not just talking about in the financial services space, we're talking about overall, right? Your local businesses, your grocery stores, what have you. Because that has dropped, that actually gives you an opportunity to stand out when you send out a piece of mail. It used to be maybe 5 years ago, or maybe even just a few years ago, when you went to your mailbox, you would get a rain of just junk mail. And so it's really easy for a marketing message to get lost in that. Well, now, since there's not as much of that, it's a lot easier for you to stand out, especially if you have a really good timely message that hits on the pain points of your consumer base. The other factor is we have a lot of people that are staying home more, right? So the lifetime of a direct mail piece, and one of the reasons why it never kind of went away or never became irrelevant, is because it's a physical object, right? And so when somebody, if they don't immediately throw that piece away, they have it on their table or wherever they leave their mail, and it stays there. Well, now, because we have people that are staying home more often, the life of that mail piece is a little bit longer. So you have people that are walking through their homes, seeing that piece, and so that message, is just radiating relevance to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. I mean, I can remember going back there in the spring of 2020, and you go from having a bunch of advertising in your mailbox to virtually nothing for months, and it's still not back up to where it was before. You mentioned, I think, a really good point. I think it's a trend we've seen from a lot of advisors, but having multiple marketing strategies. And I know we're talking about a number of strategies right now. One additional thing that I think we've seen significant growth on over the course of this of 2020 is virtual preset appointments. You've seen a lot of advisors migrating over to that. I mean, would you say that I think one of the core reasons is maybe because all the marketing and advertising is done for them, so it's just they have an appointment set and then they step into the batter's box?
Well, I think there's some aspect of that. I mean, it's like anybody right now. They want a sure thing, or they want a sense of consistency. And so I know with our virtual preset program that we use, that a lot of advisors have found that thing that they need. And what that does is give them a consistent flow so that they can then build on these other marketing strategies, so that they can put some more attention to what do I do with my social media presence, or what do I do with my website, or I need to build out an email drip list, what have you. That's a big approach. I think that underlies a lot of what we do. Is we want to give the advisor more time to do those higher touch, bigger things. And so by taking out of the equation of sort of the micro things here and there, we're able to put that attention on those bigger ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you've covered a lot of topics here in a short period of time. So one thing I would mention is a process that the creative team developed here over the last couple of years, which is our marketing analysis process, because it can be daunting. I mean, what's a fit for you might not necessarily be a fit for another advisor across the country. And so with that marketing analysis process, what our team does is they'll go through and evaluate an advisor. So they'll go through what their business looks like, their marketing assets, how they're currently marketing, their target demographic, and then the team will go back, sit down, and put together a customized marketing plan, going through what are the different marketing ideas that you should be implementing, what's the cost, what do we expect the ROI to be, etc. And so if you haven't had an opportunity to take advantage of that process, I would encourage you to reach out to your sales director and get that scheduled. Beginning of the year is a great time to do that. So with that, Chance, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And for all of you watching, we appreciate you taking time to watch the video, and certainly reach out to us. We're here to help, and we want to be a resource in your business. Thank you.
Thanks.